Alrighty, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Slate. This episode in particular, I'm super excited about because it's probably the single thing that I talk about the most when I talk about my own filmmaking career, and that is the communication cycle, but also duplication as a CEO. Now, we all have heard of the word communication before, but let me just take a step back for just one quick second. And I want you to think of some problems that you might have as a filmmaker. And let's talk about how communication itself can solve them. Because I know a lot of different problems that I've heard plenty of different people say that if they just talked to other people and communicated properly, these problems would be solved. Some of these problems might include an actor that needs to be cast in more film productions. If you're a freelance DP and you need to find more filmmaking gigs, same with gaffers or any people in the crew side of things, or if you're a producer and you need to find investors for your project, or you're just anybody in the film industry and you need to make a connection with somebody, you need to make somebody your friend, right? So those are all different consistent problems I've heard. I'm sure you have plenty of others, but what you need to realize is that so many of these things can be solved with communication. And filmmaking, just like any other art activity, is all about communication, because that's basically what art is communicating an idea or a thought to a person and then having that come to them, right? If we're talking about communication so much, we should probably define what the heck communication actually is. And while I could sit here and explain it, Mr. L. Ron Hubbard has a great simple definition for communication, and that is the exchange of giving and receiving of ideas or objects across a space. Pretty simple, or short, I should say. Maybe not simple, but the idea is that you're basically doing something back and forth, right? A communication takes one person and you have to have another person to communicate to, or another thing to communicate to. It's got to be a back and forth action, and it's got to be an idea or an object. That's how you can get into communication with something, right? So two terminals and you're having something, an idea or an object going back and forth. There's another part to this of communication where really communication is one part of this very important triangle. And this triangle, what I want you to do right now, if you can, draw a triangle, just like on a sheet of paper or a notebook or something like that. Just draw a little triangle. And we're going to call this triangle the ARC triangle. So I want you to put an A at one corner, an R at one corner, and a C at one corner, right? The A stands for affinity. And affinity basically has to do with how much you like or dislike something. If you have high affinity, you like it a lot. If you have a low affinity, you're not a huge fan. Then there's reality. And reality is how much you agree with something. So let's say you and your friend are looking at a car outside, and you see that car is red. You say that car is red. Your friend says, yep, that car is red. Congratulations, you have a shared reality on the color of the car. So the more you share a reality on maybe movies that you like or things like that. And then the last part, C, you guessed it, is communication, which would be how much you are exchanging ideas or objects with this other terminal, right? So these three things together, affinity, reality, and communication, are all dependent upon one another. And the more you grow one of them, the more you'll grow the other two. And those three things together create understanding. So if you are able to communicate with somebody, you really like them a whole bunch, and you share a lot of reality, you probably understand them really, really well. They understand you really, really well as well. However, there's one other quote that Mr. Hubbard gives that is very interesting. I found it shocking. And it says that affinity and reality are very much less important than communication. It might be said that the triangle begins with communication, which brings into existence affinity and reality. ARC, understanding. What he's basically saying here is that, you can like a whole bunch of things and you can have a lot of reality, but all of that begins with how much you're able to actually communicate with a person. And that is a huge, huge factor. So we talked about all those problems we had earlier. You can solve a lot of these problems just by talking to people the right way and exchanging those ideas. between you and this other terminal. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a little drill right here, and I'm going to throw a communication up here. It's going to be a picture. Now, what I want you to do is describe this image in one word. That's it. That's all you get. One word. Whatever word you want to use is totally fine. I've heard plenty of other people do this one before. Maybe it's lively, satirical, organic, colorful. Could be a million different things. But I also want to demonstrate here that so many different people that look at this will come up with different words. And even though I'm sending out the same communication to all of these people of this image, people are taking it and making it mean something else, which again is a demonstration that a communication takes two people and both people contribute to it, making it into what it is, right? Because I sent the same thing out to everybody, but I'm going to get a lot of different single words back. That's not a bad thing necessarily. It just informs us how it works. And it informs us that there's another part to a good communication, which is this word called duplication. And duplication might be a word you've heard before, but Mr. Hubbard defines it in two different ways. Number one, it is to repeat the exact same cycle again. I mean, can you duplicate it? Can you do it over and over and over again? All right. Number two, to duplicate at receipt point what has been started at the cause point. So what he's talking about here with a cause point and a receipt point is a cause point is going to send out some sort of a communication. Like I just sent out that image to everybody. And maybe I have a specific idea in mind that I want to communicate with that image. If I'm able to duplicate it properly, or if the person or the terminal that I'm communicating is able to duplicate it properly at the receipt point, they are going to get what I've sent out, right? It's making sure that they're actually duplicating what I'm saying. So that's the second definition of duplicate out there. This can work out in a ton of different ways. However, before I get into all of that, I want to do one more exercise with you. And whether you're an actor or not, this will be a fun exercise for you to try and do. But I think actors in particular will have a lot of fun with this. We're going to try and use both definitions of duplicate and see how that works with the filmmaking process. So I'm going to give you a line of dialogue now, all right? So actors, this is your big break. Make a meal out of it, okay? The line is, I'm fine, thank you. That's your line. I'm fine, thank you. So I'm going to give you a note. I want you to say that really happy, cheerful, happy. Okay? I want you to say that as happy as you can. I'm fine, thank you. Excellent. Okay, good. So now you've done that. Now I want us to use the first definition of duplicate, and I want you to do that the exact same way again. Okay? So please say, I'm fine, thank you, the exact same way that you just did. Perfect. Now we can see how useful that definition of duplicate is going to be, because if you're an actor and you're now on take 9, take 10, take 11, take 12, and they've said, hey, it's great, but just one little thing is it off here on their camera side, or this light needs to be over here, blah, 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 but you're doing great. You got to be able to duplicate over and over and over again because they love what you're doing. They don't want you to change it. It's working for you. So duplicating is important that way. Now we're going to try exercise number 2, which is the second definition of duplication, which is now at the receipt point getting what I have said as the cause point. Instead of being really happy, this time I want to try it where you're really like annoyed and just so aggressive, almost disgusted with someone. Okay? So that's the idea I'm communicating to you. I want you to duplicate it, understand what I'm trying to say, and then give me the line again from that standpoint. So go ahead whenever you're ready. Perfect. Okay, so now you're saying the same line, but you've duplicated the idea that I have given to you and done it that way. And we see how both parts of duplication are super important. I love it, especially as a director. My biggest job is getting people to duplicate what vision I'm going for, whether it's writers or DPs or whatever. They need to all understand what my vision is. So I need to send a communication in a way that they will understand it and duplicate what I'm trying to do for themselves. That is a huge part of it. I also think this is a great way. This is a fun thing to do with like writers. You could play this with your characters if you want to as well, writers. Like you can write a scene and maybe one character is saying something to another, and you can choose whether or not that second character duplicates what they're saying. Maybe they think that they do and they don't, and it causes problems later on in the script. or maybe they duplicate it perfectly and the scene is able to move fluidly. It's kind of up to you. It's like you see that this is a part of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit more of an in-depth definition of communication from Mr. Hubbard, and we're going to see how duplication is a part of it as well, because he goes on to define communication a little bit more. He says, communication is the consideration and action of impelling an impulse or particle from source point across a distance to the receipt point with the intention of bringing into being at the receipt point a duplication of that which emanated from the source point. And if you hear that sentence, you're like, what? Don't worry, I understand. It just means you didn't duplicate it properly, and that's totally fine. That's literally what this is all about. But basically what he's saying here is that a communication is trying to get some idea or something across from an original source point, getting it across a distance to an exact receipt point, and having that receipt point duplicate the idea themselves. So it's like making sure that whatever I said is actually understood properly by the receipt point, which again is why it's so important that we have ARC and we understand how that triangle works. Mr. Hubbard goes on to define a formula for communication, right? It has a lot to do with the definition that we said, but he goes on to say that you have cause, and then there's a distance that it must go to over to an effect. So your source point goes through a distance, and now there's a receipt point of an effect, but that effect has to have both the attention and the duplication of the idea that was given to them. Again, this is going to be extremely important if you're a director, or if you're a director of photography, or if you're a producer, or if you're even an actor trying to work with some other people in the scene. Like, you have to send things and make sure that whoever you're sending them to is seeing what you're trying to do. Actors, great question for you. Have you ever had a scene that you were trying to do something and the director just didn't get it? Well, that's because your communication didn't go through to the point where that director could duplicate what you were trying to do. This is where we see it all sort of break down, and sort of like the technology of it all. I like to call it almost the math of it all. We see it working in our film industry. Another classic example of communication. We have two guys. We've got one named Joe. He's going to be our source point, and he's talking about his cat. He loves his cat so much. And he wants to talk to Bill, his friend, about this cat. So he's going to send a communication across a distance to Bill, because he's not going to be right there with Bill. That'd be a little weird. So he's going to talk to Bill across a little bit of a distance. He says, "Hey, I love my cat." And Bill is going to get the idea of Joe's cat in his head. Okay. Now, we don't have, that's like part of a communication formula, but we don't have an actual communication cycle, meaning a start and then an end, until Bill has returned this idea back to Joe. So meaning the receipt point has returned the idea back to the source point. So if Bill then says, "Oh my gosh, she's so cute, your cat," and says that back to Joe, and Joe's like, "Yeah, she is so cute. Great." We have now had a communication cycle. But let's say that Bill hears Joe talk about his cat. "I love my cat," and then doesn't say or do anything at all. That's not really a communication now, is it? Because Bill never returned anything to Joe. So they're not actually getting into communication. Joe's sending something. Bill might even be receiving it, but Bill's not giving anything back. So that's not a communication. Man, let me tell you, like, I have been to some of these networking events with different filmmakers where I have been both sides of this thing, trying to talk to somebody and then just watching them go flat. Give me nothing. That's not a good communication that I've got going on there, and not a communication cycle that's actually happening. So I didn't really communicate with that person. Like, I know what's going to be good and what's going to be bad. It's not just that feeling, like that feeling that you get when you're like, "Ugh, I don't know if this went well." You're probably right. It didn't go well because they never gave it back to you. But if you've got someone talking back and forth with you, then all of a sudden, bam, you've got a great communication cycle, and now you are growing. And that's to tying it all sort of back to the original idea of what can communication do for you. Well, you can see how it will get you a really solid connection with an investor, or with a producer, or with a casting director, or somebody that's going to hire you for something. but only if it's a real communication. Because if you're just talking at somebody, that's not going to do anything for you. Now I'm going to try something a little bit more difficult, just because I think it'll be fun. I like to challenge you guys. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a quote up here by Mr. Hubbard. I'm going to say it out loud, and it's going to be on screen for as long as I'm going through the quote, and then it's going to go away. And then your job is going to be to duplicate it. So here's the quote. Communication is the single most powerful item or object in this or any other universe. With communication is created space, energy, and time itself. And the only way that anybody gets stuck to anything is by a failure to communicate something known as the cycle of communication. All right, so that's it. Now what I want you to do is take the first definition of duplication and see if you can do that. Can you tell me what that just said word for word? Go for it. Okay, honestly, I don't know if you got it because I wasn't necessarily able to hear you. However, my guess is you probably didn't, and that's totally okay that you didn't duplicate it exactly. Because while you might not have gotten definition 1 of duplication, let's try definition 2. Do you understand the basic concept of what he's saying? I mean, basically what he's saying here is that communication is super, super important. One of the most important things in the entire universe, not just world, but universe, right? And the only way that we really get stuck in any of the problems that we have is by failing to communicate. Man, I didn't say that word for word, but I got the idea and I duplicated it, right? And that was because I was able to send something, I received it, took it back. So, hey, there you go. That's the communication cycle at work. I hope that you can use this communication cycle in any form of film industry that you are in. I think it'll be extremely helpful for you. And if you ever find yourself getting bogged down meaning like you're getting stuck somewhere, your career isn't going, the best thing you can do is communicate to somebody and communicate properly. Because as he just said there, most, if not all, of our problems in the entire universe are from not communicating properly. Now that we know how to talk to people and what we're looking for, we'll need to know who the people are that we actually want on our team and who these people should be and why we should have a team and why it's so important, who you can trust and who you can't. That's what we're going to be going over in the next episode of this. But guys, thank you so much for watching this. I hope that you learned something, and I hope you tune into the next one. Thanks. Let's make some movies.